Welcome to February's block number 2 for block of the month. We are doing House on the Hill block, except if you'll notice, and you'll see why, this one is going to be called Carol's Wonky House. Yours doesn't have to be wonky, but I sewed this strip upside down, and so it's kind of wonky. My windows don't measure up to each other, so let's see how we can get yours perfect. So let's cut our blocks out. You're going to have your first block is the orange print or orange and pink print, and you're going to cut a piece 3.5 by 12.5. Then out of the whites, we're going to cut a 3-piece off first, and then you're going to trim that to 9.5 and then cut 2 1.5-inch strips. Then you're going to cut 2 3.5 by 3.5 squares. Out of our pink, we're going to do the same thing. You're going to cut a strip off that's 3.5, because 1.5 and 1.5 is 3, not 3.5, but 3. 1.5 and 1.5 is 3. So you're going to cut that strip. Then you're going to cut one that is 9.5 inches long, and then you'll subcut that to 1.5. Then on the bottom part, you're going to cut it off. You're going to cut out from your 3-inch strip. You're going to cut a 7.5 inch, and then you're going to subcut that to 1.5. Then you're going to have your 2.5-inch strip left, or you're going to cut one, and you're going to cut out of that 1.5 strip. You're going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strips that are 1.5. Then you're going to cut a 2.5-inch strip, and then you're going to cut 2 2.5 by 3.5 strips. Then out of your yellow or fabric, you're going to cut 2 1.5-inch strips. You're going to cut from that 3 squares that are 2.5 by 2.5, and then 2 that are 2.5 by 3.5. Then your your orange fabric, you're going to cut a piece that's 2.5 by 4.5. Now let's put that together. The diagrams on the instructions are very good. So what they want you to do first is the roof. That is part down here on the bottom. So you're going to take your piece of your orange fabric. You're going to take 2 of your 3.5-inch squares, and you're going to draw on the diagonal on each of those. Make sure your diagonals are going the right way, and then you're going to sew on here. Then you're going to press those back. Now it says to cut this off at 1/4 inch. I never like to cut this part off completely, because this piece of fabric is the true size of your piece. It is 3.5 by 12.5. So if you haven't sewn perfectly, this may be off a little bit. But if you leave that under there, and then just press this. But we're going to cut part of it off. We're going to take, and we're just going to take and cut 1/4 inch from this seam. Fold this back and cut that off right there, and then press this over, and it's off just a little bit, but then you're going to sew on that orange part so it'll be perfect. Okay, so then we're going to lay it out. It says to lay out your diagram as this way. So here's your C fabric, your D fabric, an E, an I, an E, and an I. And then here's your G. So just follow that diagram and lay it out just like that. And then when we start to sew together, you'll see why. So we've got these. So now we're going to sew together the E, I, L. I'm sorry, skipped over too much. E, the I, the E, and the J. We're going to do that on. And then the next one we're going to sew is an E, an I, an F, and K. Then the next ones we're going to sew E, I, E, and J. These two are exactly alike, and that's where Carol's wonky house came in. She didn't lay that out like this, and this got switched like this. So I have a tall window on the top, short window. So you want to lay yours out just like this. Then we're ready to do the next step. So we've got these 3 units sewn together. So we're going to take and we're going to sew the D to this right here, and the D to this side. Make sure you sew one on one side and one on the other. Then, so we've got those done. Now we've got this unit made right here and right here. So we're going to sew G on to the bottom of those units. Now we're going to sew all of these units together. So we're going to sew the C to this unit. Then we're going to sew this unit to this, and just go on the way down until you get them all sewn together. Then you sew your roof on the top, and your house is complete, and it should measure 12.5 by 12.5. Now I want to talk to you about starching, because we've talked about starching, making our starch bag and all of that. The one thing that we have realized that when you, like if you're doing a layer cake, a jelly roll, or a charm pack, you don't want to starch those because because of the starching, it shrinks a little bit. And on these pieces, you want to starch before you cut out. So always make sure you starch your fabrics before you cut your pieces out. And if you've got any questions about starching, just come talk to us at the sewing studio. Have a great sewing day. Thank you.